Picture the scene. It's evening, and you're in a bar. Around you are your friends, your family, your loved ones, the people that make you happy. You are quite comfortable. You're warm. The atmosphere in there is mellow. You're generally enjoying yourself and having a good time. But then, something changes. The ground begins to shake, and the air resonates with the sound of explosions and gunfire. You run to the window. You'd been drinking in the bar on the pier in Aberystwyth, a beautiful Welsh coastal town, a place where you used to holiday with your grandparents as a child. Only now, that town is burning. What you judge to be lightning pierces the rising columns of smoke and illuminates the night sky. Something emerges from the soot and darkness. It's a banana. And not just any banana. This banana has a more of sharp teeth and fangs, and it floats magically in the air as if propelled by some unseen force. What you took to be lightning isn't. It's actually some form of energy weapon. The bolts of power spring forth from this unusual beast's pointy butt. This thing came from the sky, and instinctively you know more will follow. We are being invaded. A quick glance down reveals a length of old ornate metal drainpipe, and a smile crosses your lips. You pick it up, hoisting it onto your shoulder, savouring its solidity and the sudden heft. You step forward with a strong kick and knock out the bar window. You know exactly what to do. Hitting an imaginary trigger, you launch a stream of leather shoes high into the air at extreme velocity. And these aren't cheap budget Schumart shoes. These are prime Italian leather. You strike your target, the mutant banana, dead in centre. The force field holding it in the air shorts out, and with a strangled cry it plummets into the ocean below. A victory, but the victory is short-lived. Sensing their kin in danger, more descend. A switch flicks on inside you, and you engage your God mode. You go full first-person shooter, holding down your trigger finger and filling the sky with quality footwear. Another is brought down, then a second, then a third. You're a one-man mutant killing army. But then, the bar doors blow open and mutant bananas swarm in. You pivot on the spot, bringing your shoe cannon to bear.
Well, hold up. I got to stop you there. Obviously, I know what you're blabbering about, but the people listening, they aren't going to have a clue. Well, it's a killer banana dream. Well, yeah, I know that, but no one else does. You sound like a raving loon. Yeah, I understand that, but that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, you know. It was a dream. Dreams are really, really weird. Yeah, damn right they are. So I take it we're on to do a bit of a deep dive into dreams today then? Hell yeah, we are. But first, we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about sleep. And I think this one's going to be a bit of a monster, so you better strap in. Ooh. If we're talking about dreams, you've got to tell that one we had about our work colleague that turned out to be a cannibal, yeah? No. I think one odd dream is enough to make our point. But I thought we were doing a deep dive. Yeah, we are, but before we can talk about dreams and what their purpose probably is, we need to understand a little bit more about sleep. You see, sleep and dreaming obviously go hand in hand. And whereas you might be able to sleep without dreaming, you definitely can't dream without sleep. At least not this kind of dream. Yeah, exactly. You can daydream, but you can't night dream without sleep. And sleep in itself is odd enough. You know, we might not be a scientist, but we have listened to the odd sleep podcast or two featuring scientists. Yeah, we're pretty interested in sleep because, let's face it, our own record with sleep is... It's pretty sketchy at best. Yeah, we don't sleep all that great, do we, most nights? But what are you going to do? It's a busy world. Anyway, we've listened to a few podcasts about sleep and sleep science, and it doesn't take a genius to work out that science is still pretty much scratching its head when it comes to sleep. Like, why do we even sleep? What the real purpose is? What biological function does it serve? And, so on, so forth, whatnot. Yeah, and if science knows very little, then we as the people clearly know even less. Yeah, that's right. We as the people are still believing in all sorts of old misconceptions and garbage that's been perpetuated for years. All regarding sleep, yeah? Yeah, all regarding sleep. Even though most of them are just complete bull.
I sense a list coming on. We like lists. Are we doing a list?
Yeah, we do like lists, and yes, of course, we're going to do one, yeah? Number 1 on the sleep misconception list is that it's still widely believed that people only dream during a period of sleep known as REM sleep.
That's me in the corner.
No, not that.
That's me in the spot.
Don't do that, Dad.
Lights.
Don't do that. Seriously, we cannot sing, so zip it. I am not being forced to endure any more of that when I come to edit this audio.
Oh, all right, Suzzard.
Anyway, REM in this scenario stands for rapid eye movement. It's one of the several sleep phases humans have, alongside lighter and deeper sleeps. And after its discovery in 1953, it was almost immediately assumed to be the period in which we experienced dreams. And it's easy to see why, to be fair. Alongside the eye movements, which the phase was named after, people's bodies do also tend to twitch and move a lot during this period. You know, we can even talk in our sleep. It seemed only logical to relate these symptoms and movements back to the act of dreaming.
Oh, and it turns out that it isn't?
No, so addressing that first misconception, REM isn't the only state in which we dream. It turns out that science, as in a very technical and in-depth set of experiments where they woke people up a lot, proved a long time ago that we can actually dream in any of those sleep states. But for whatever reason, the prior myth about REM sleep still continues to perpetuate amongst most people.
Yeah, not many people are bothered about keeping up with science, are they? Let's face it. Unless it has something to do with a new smartphone feature or some crap like that.
Yeah, or they invent a pill that makes you lose weight without putting any effort in whatsoever. But anyway, the discovery that we could have dreams in any of the sleep stages was actually quite significant, because for a long time, science had attributed the increased brain activity during REM sleep specifically to us dreaming.
Wait, did you say increased brain activity? I thought our brains rested while we slept.
Yeah, that's another misconception, but you're sort of jumping forward a little bit, okay? So let's circle back on that one later. Getting back on topic, right? When we sleep, a part of the brain called the thalamus typically goes quiet. And it's believed that the thalamus acts like a receiver. It's like a big radio dish that filters all of our sensory data like touch and smell and movements and blah blah. And when we sleep, this shuts down. It's what lets us tune out the world around us. But for whatever reason during the REM bit of sleep, it becomes more active again. And the theory always went that this activation meant that the brain was once more interpreting some sort of sensory data.
Right, so basically processing what we were seeing and experiencing in our dreams, yeah?
Yeah, basically allowing the mind to create dreams in a sense.
But you're telling me that bit isn't true?
Well, it might have some impact on our dreams, but it certainly isn't the trigger for them. Because, as I've already mentioned, science has now proven that we can dream in all sleep states, not just REM.
Oh, okay, cool. So, dreaming is nothing to do with the thalamus then?
Or not as directly linked with the thalamus as science may have previously thunk. Alright?
Yeah, alright.
So, on to misconception number 2 then. And this one is about twitching.
What, you mean live streaming?
No, I'm talking physical twitching, like body movements, not that dumb outlet for people with zero attention spans. For this one, imagine the dogs when they sleep.
Or cats or rats or ferrets or whatever, other pets are available.
Yeah, but for us, it's dogs, right? We treat those woofers better than we treat ourselves.
Yeah, because they deserve it, and we are scum, so we don't.
Yeah, exactly, but tell me this. How often have we watched our dogs when they are spark out of sleep? And their little noses start twitching and their feet start moving, and sometimes they might even growl or woof too, And we go, oh, they must be having a nice dream, right?
Yeah. In their little heads, they're probably running along the beach somewhere, chasing seagulls or something like that.
Yeah. We imagine they're probably having the time of their lives, right?
Okay, here comes the but.
Yeah, there's going to be a few buts in this one.
But's our kingdom for a but, right?
Yeah, but it was always thought that those twitches and movements and woofs were a byproduct of the dream they were having, right?
Well, yeah, they are, aren't they? They sort of have to be, right?
Well, it turns out not. And this all stems back to some research carried out by a guy called Mark Blumberg, a neuroscientist and his team at the University of Iowa. You see, they were doing a study on sleep in different mammals, and Mark noticed when they were looking at baby rats, like day-old rats, that they were already doing the weird sleep twitching thing, even though they were only a day old. you know. Now, at this point, they wouldn't have even opened their eyes yet. So, what exactly did they have to dream about? What life experiences were their dreams based on? You know, being blind and less than a day old. Yeah, it's hard to imagine they're dreaming about running on the beach and chasing birds at that point, right? Yeah, well, I'm not sure rats do those things, so... Yeah, well, sculling up drain pipes and scaring lonely housewives then. Yeah, whatever. They wouldn't even know what a drain pipe was at that point, yeah? So it makes no sense that they would be having such active dreams. And Mark and his team obviously agreed. So they did a little bit of an experiment. Now, I'm not going to get into specifics because it sounds pretty brutal, to be honest. But they basically eliminated the baby rat's ability to dream. Sounds like the sort of experiment which would upset our mild animal-loving sensibilities. Yeah, but glossing over that bit of scientific barbarity, after the procedure, when that baby rat next had a nap, it still did the sleep twitching thing, exactly the same as before. What, regardless of the fact that it couldn't dream? Yeah, totally regardless of not being able to dream. So, the twitches couldn't be a byproduct of the dream the rat was having. Oh, that can't be right. Well, the science would say otherwise. Yeah, but we've had nightmares where we've been trying to cry out and couldn't, you know, in our nightmare. And then Bubsy has had to wake us up because in the real world we were actually shouting in our sleep. Yeah, that is very true. But Mark might have a theory for that too, in a roundabout way. Well, this better be a good one. Right, so, as a next phase of his experiments, he monitored brain activity in other baby rats. What, the ones that haven't been scientifically brutalised, yeah? Yeah, and he tracked data on them during periods of twitches and spasms, and he mapped out the results, overlaying their brain activity onto a graph of the corresponding twitches and movements. Yeah, and what did that prove? Well, it proved that the twitches actually came first, bizarrely, followed up shortly after by a sudden spike in brain activity. What, so it was the twitch happening first? Yeah, right. So, does that mean it was the twitch causing the dream? So you think we were shouting out for no reason, and then our dream somehow incorporated that aspect into what we were seeing and experiencing while we were sleeping? Well, yeah, possibly. Especially if we were in REM sleep, because then our thalamus would have been more active, meaning that we would have been open to any external stimulus. But why the hell would we just cry out for no reason? It doesn't make any sense. Well, I'm not so sure about the crying out bit specifically, but Mark has a theory relating to the twitches and eye movements, at least. Mark's theory suggests that the twitches and movements we make during sleep are actually a form of calibration. It's a way for the brain to firm up mapping and whatnot relating to our balance and coordination and stuff like that. So the body moves, and then the brain interprets that data and learns from it. And this would make a lot of sense in a younger mammal. Yeah, as they obviously need to learn and master their core motor skills as early as possible. Yeah, right. It's essential for their survival. Okay, and so at our advanced age, you're saying that our body needed to remind itself how to shout. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not so sure on the shouting bit specifically, but the other stuff does make some sense. It's a scientific fact that the body twitches and moves less and less during sleep as we age. And it stands to reason that we would need to calibrate less and less as we grow older because we'd have already mastered most things. You know, we'd already have it down. Yeah, right, fair enough. It does make some sense, I suppose. But anyway, you've been waffling on about this section now for way too long, and you're sort of boring me. So, can we go back to what you said earlier about the brain being more active during sleep, because that bit's really befuddling me. Yeah, cool. Misconception number 3, the long settled upon theory that our brains are largely shut down during sleep, and that in general, sleep is some sort of like universal rest period, you know, with our dreams simply being a byproduct of our brain trying to reorganise and reprocess memories of our day-to-day experiences and blah, 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 blah. So, you're going to tell me that the human sleep mode isn't actually a sleep mode, right? Well, it may not be, or at least not entirely. There are a lot of restorative processes going on while we sleep, so that much is certainly true, but the brain certainly is not shut down during that time. Yeah, and we definitely aren't reconciling some sort of memory about angry flying fruit, are we? Because that has never happened to us. Yeah, not even close. But anyway, it turns out that there is a lot more activity going on in the brain than people first realised. Dr. Caroline Horton, PhD, psychologist and director of Dreams Lab at Bishop's Grose Test University, had this to say.
In terms of the brain being inactive, thankfully that's simply factually inaccurate. During some parts of sleep, your brain is, on average, more active than when you are awake. When we first go to sleep, we quite quickly move through the stages to that deep sleep state, which is prioritized in about the first half of the night, in a typical 8-hour sleep stint. The brain does something incredible here, in that brain cells, or neurons, all communicate with each other at the same time, as if they're all singing in a chorus. This never happens when we're awake.
Oh, okay. And that's the deep sleep bit too, yeah? The supposedly more restful bit? That's not even the REM bit. Yeah, that's right. So we may be using different kinds of brain waves or whatever when we're asleep versus when we're awake, but the amplitude of them when we sleep often far exceeds the equivalent of the daily brain activity. And even more oddly, it seems like this may be exaggerated even more when we are young. Listen to this from Mark Blumberg, the guy whose experiments we were discussing earlier.
What we started to see when we were recording brain activity is that the brains of neonates, baby rats, were much more active during sleep, and much more active when animals were twitching, than when they were awake. It's one thing to think that sleep has brain activity associated with it. That was a huge finding 80 years ago. It's another thing entirely to see that the brain activity is greater, and I mean much greater, during REM sleep than during awake.
Oh, that's a bit mad. You'd think that a young mammal like that would need to conserve its energy for, like, growing and stuff, right? So why would they waste so much energy on dreaming or thinking? Well, if that's even what's happening. So, surely something else must be going on in there then, yeah? The brain clearly isn't just resting during sleep. It's not like you take a break from your daily 5k jog by sprinting a marathon. No, of course not. So, what is going on then? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? You know, sleep is weird, dreams are weird. I don't think anyone truly knows. The big problem with trying to assess dreams is that they're obviously quite subjective. You know, they're bound to our own consciousness, so only we, personally, can see them and know what's going on. Right, so you can't, like, shove a camera inside someone's brain and see what they're thinking or experiencing. Exactly. You can attach some electrodes and observe brainwaves or neurons firing, so scientists can assume some things happening, but they don't truly know what those things are. You know, is it that those brainwaves and neurons and activity are creating our consciousnesses, or are our consciousnesses creating all that activity? Ah, it's like chicken and egg, isn't it? You know, which one came first? Yeah, exactly. Internet and troll. What came first? But there are theories, right? Someone must have some idea or guess or vague impression of what might be happening. Yeah. Guesses and hypotheses? Whatever. Yeah. There are theories. Lots of theories. Especially when it comes to dreams and what dreams might be or represent. Okay, then are we going to look into any of those too? Yeah, of course we are. It's what we're here for. And as always, I've drummed up a nice little list. Okay, but I know you well enough to sense that there's another book coming on. Yeah, but I think we've waffled on enough for one day. So if people want to know more about dreams, then they'll have to pick up with us in part 2. Ooh, so this is a 2-parter, is it? Well, yeah, it is now because I've just decreed it. Okay, fair enough. So, what do now? Are you going to suggest pizza again? Nah, I was actually thinking about necking a massive block of cheese instead. What? Why would we do that? Well, because there's a protein in cheese, which, when digested, it basically breaks down into like an opioid. Ooh, damn. Yeah. And that could be one of the reasons why we always have such bizarre dreams. You know, a lot of cheese before bed. Ah, cool. So, lactose-infused cheese dreams then, yeah? Yeah. So, if cheese breaks down into an opioid, is it dangerous then? No, of course not. It's nothing like those nasty and addictive and life-destroying drugs that other people peddle. Ah, cool. Let's do it then. Let's eat some cheese. Yeah, but on second thought, that is a lot of saturated fat. Oh, you really are no fun.